back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that since I'm in town in Boulders, folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa. Whoa, really tune that down a little bit there, folks. That is loud. I just turned it down so when it opens up again, the future won't be quite so loud. That is very loud. Blows your speakers out. So loud. That is very loud. Welcome back to the program, folks. Good evening. It is late here on the East Coast of the United States. Finished the radio program a short while ago on the Common Sense. This hat is crooked as all get out. What's the deal with the bill? I just noticed that how crooked this bill is. Gee, many crickets. I have to adjust a little bit there. But I've been wearing this hat for a few years and just never noticed how crooked it was. Anyway, welcome back to the program, folks. I got to say is earlier today on Wednesdays with the Colonel with Ronaldo, I was asked the question in the chat by someone who wanted to know my thoughts on the Dan Bilzerian interview on Piers Morgan. I don't watch Piers Morgan. He's, I don't trust the guy half the time. Sometimes he's got his act together. Sometimes he doesn't. But I went and watched it tonight after the radio program, and I got to say, what the hell? Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Is this guy crazy or what? So I looked him up. He's claims dual citizenship, but normally if you go fight in a foreign war for a foreign government, you get stripped of your citizenship. The United States has failed to strip Mr. Bilzerian of his citizenship. He was born in America and then went to Armenia and fought in the war there in 2018, or so he claims. He's apparently a poker player, went to university in Florida, and then dropped out before he graduated to become a professional poker player. Tried to run for president in 2015, then backed Trump. I don't know the guy's full story. I've never heard of him. Honestly, never heard of him. Some of the people that you all bring to my attention, maybe not people in the audience tonight, but others brought to my attention, I just really don't know where you come up with these names. They're just crazy. This guy is out there. I mean, I listened to this interview, and not all of it, but big chunks of it. I mean, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. My goodness. First off, he's not in a position to know anything he claims to know. When pressed by Piers Morgan to say where he got his information from, well, I read reports. What, from conspiracy kooks on the internet? He says that Jews are the reason we fought the first Gulf War. No, Mr. Bilzerian, it's not the reason we fought the first Gulf War. The reason we fought the first Gulf War was because Iraq invaded Kuwait and took over 6% of the world's oil supply and threatened Saudi Arabia, where half the world's oil supply was at, threatening the energy of Europe and Japan. China, not an important player at that point 35 years ago. And George Bush said, no more, not an inch further. And we went there, not because of Israel, not because of Jews and our government, but because it was necessary geopolitically. And you can feign ignorance all you want, but the reality is that, and I've said this before, I came to an epiphany as a young lieutenant in the desert, having fought in that war in 1991. I came to an epiphany sitting there that while I didn't like the idea that, of course, I listened to the propaganda fed by the leftist media that we were there because it was about oil. Well, it was about oil. It was about energy security. And I came to grips with that, realizing my life was put on the line to protect the world's energy supply, just like when Reagan reflagged oil tankers in the 1980s that were being attacked by the Iranians and the Iraqis in the Persian Gulf, or Arabian Gulf, depending on your bent political position. Unbelievable. So the second Gulf War in 2003, he claims, is because of Jews. Jews control our government. Jews are the reason why we're in it. And then he talks about BlackRock. It's run by Jews. Larry Fink is Jewish, but have you looked at the board of directors? There's a lot of non-Jewish people on that board of directors. And this conspiracy that BlackRock is some evil entity, people need to quit being lazy and actually do research. BlackRock is an investment company that invests assets from people who give their money to them, much like Fidelity, much like Vanguard, much like Merrill Lynch. They're not some evil enterprise that is running the world. That's just nonsense. I mean, it's so, look, I mean, I'm going to play a couple audio excerpts of this because this guy is just cuckoo, cuckoo, unbelievable. So let me get to this. Now, I'm going to get hate mail for this video, or it'll be suppressed by YouTube, one of the two, or both. But you know what? I really don't care if I get hate mail. When someone says something there's a Saudi on the board of BlackRock. Thank you. Someone says something outlandish, so outrageous, makes no sense. I mean, okay, before I play the audio, he says that he disputes the figure of 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust. Well, people who are experts in the field have looked at it. They said it was impossible for the ovens to burn 6 million people at Auschwitz, or 4 million people. And he said they've revised that figure down from 4 million to 1 million. What planet are you on? No one said that 6 million people were killed in ovens in Auschwitz, you moron. That's not even what the argument was. The Jews were systemically eliminated, as were socialists and communists and homosexuals and mixed race Germans, and then aristocrats and then Catholics from German society. But Jews were eliminated throughout Europe. And the Holodomor, he blames the Holodomor on Jews. Are you serious? The Holodomor was committed by Stalin. Yes, there were some senior Jews in his government, but they were liquidated by the Soviets too. Wow. And then he claims his people were exterminated by the Jews, the Armenians. I'm sorry, was it not the Ottoman Turks, who are Muslim and not Jewish, who wiped out the Armenians in the genocide? Yeah? Isn't that who did it? The Jews, there are Jews there, a handful of Jews living there. They weren't behind that. This guy is, certifiable. This is the problem with celebrity. People become famous for being famous. Paris Hilton, Ariana Grande. Well, she actually can sing a little bit, prance around, but Paris Hilton has no skills other than being attractive. But people become famous for being famous. Kardashians. Although the one sister is pretty adept at, her perfume empire, but the other one's just, the one that became for Khloe, I think is the one that's adept, or I don't remember her name anyway, but Kim is just, anyway. So people become famous for being famous, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They talk out the side of their mouth or out their ass. So now let's listen a little bit what this guy had to say. This is just bat crap crazy. Let me go back a little bit here and play this. And I can't show the video because I probably get a copyright claim, but it's important to listen to this. See, this is why we should be allowed on YouTube to show the stuff, just to refute this, because it's newsworthy and this analysis matters.
I'm a gambler, so
Hang on. So I had to turn off the desktop audio there for a few minutes, but let's hear what this guy's got to say. So he says he's a gambler. Yeah, you're a gambler.
World today. I truly believe that.
What do you mean the figure's been revised? What do you mean?
This is 6 million Jews killed.
Well, they said that it was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million. So they've revised the figure.
First off, who is they? What revised figures are you talking about? And no one said 4 million were killed in Auschwitz. That's just nonsense. There's an entire system of 1,000+ camps. Treblinka, Theresienstadt, which was not a liquidation camp, but thousands died there nonetheless. Mauthausen. The list goes on and on. Dachau. Good Lord.
How many people? How many people do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
271,000 that died in Auschwitz.
How many?
He said 371,000 were killed in Auschwitz. What?
Do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
I don't know, but I would bet my entire...
Oh, he doesn't know, but he just unequivocally stated that there weren't 6 million, there weren't 4 million, there weren't 1 million. He just said 371,000. So then when he's asked, why does anybody even give this serious attention? This guy clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, the world is a scary place when this is who people turn to for authorities. It's a dumb interview, Rivati. First off, Piers Morgan, why would you invite this guy on? I mean, what does it add? And you're asking, why am I talking about it? Because I'm incensed by it. I'm incensed that the world is led by idiots. Idiot journalists like this and idiot people like this guy being interviewed. Unbelievable.
Entire net worth that it was under 6 million.
So he would bet his entire net worth. I'll take up that bet. Yeah, Bergen-Belsen, I've also been there. I've been to many of these camps. I've been to Bergen-Belsen. I've been to Mauthausen. I've been to Dachau. I've been to many of these camps.
I simply ask you, Dan, what's the motivation for making claims like that? What do you stand to gain by trying to diminish what happened in World War II?
I'm just answering your question. I'm a...
You're not just answering his question. You're just making stuff up, and you can't back it up with any evidence, and people believe you? Look, I went looking on Twitter for this, and it's shocking what people put on Twitter, backing him and attacking Piers Morgan. Look, I'm not a fan of Piers Morgan, but this is insane. Let me bring some of this stuff up, folks. It's crazy. Hang on a second. Let me bring this over here real quick. All right, so they're going after Piers Morgan in this thing. It's just crazy. I mean, look, you can go after Piers Morgan, but not for this interview. Suleiman Ahmed, Piers Morgan attacks Dan Bilzerian and calls him an anti-Semite. Yet he calls Douglas Murray a friend and never questions his direct attack on Muslims or Islam, or calls him Islamophobic. Hypocrisy and double standards. Dr. Anastasia Maria Lopez, Dan Bilzerian killed Piers Morgan. I don't know what you're watching, lady. New episode. Now, this is Aaron Cohen who tears apart what Bilzerian says. Dan Bilzerian absolutely cooked Piers Morgan. Dan Bilzerian and Piers Morgan debate. I'll bet my entire net worth it wasn't $6 million. This is unbelievable. Piers doesn't make an argument, just smears Dan Bilzerian as an anti-Semite. He does make an argument, Sam Parker, Ucas Cage. He does, in fact, make an argument. Dan Bilzerian silences Piers Morgan by comparing the Holocaust to the Armenian genocide. Speak the truth, whatever the cost. The problem, Mr. Bilzerian, is that you're not speaking truth. You're speaking nonsense and gobbledygook. We crown the jester instead of the kings. This world is becoming a circus. It is, Ruvani. It absolutely. This is a jester. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I mean, these people are insane. This is the difference between being funded by yourself and being funded by Zionists. Dan absolutely cooked Piers. What planet are these people on? Totally agree. My support for Dan Bilzerian and Piers Morgan. These are mostly anti-Semitic Muslims who are putting this, but not exclusively. There are plenty of Christians here who think that Dan Bilzerian actually got his act together. So Joe Quagja says, I recommend people watch the full interview. Piers proved once again why he's a Zionist douchebag with a punchable face. Piers repeats, you have no clear evidence when it comes to claims Bilzerian makes. When it comes to Israeli lies and propaganda, he repeats, there's clear evidence. Piers played all the cards, anti-Semite, you hate Jews, and ended with Nazi. Not once did he challenge the facts Dan presented. Not once did he call Dan a liar. This is classic. Dan destroys Piers with honesty. Okay, well, I will present you with facts. The gentleman, I just blew apart his whole argument. He said that those numbers revised downward. They revised numbers. Who is they? He offered no facts. These people are just delusional. They sit here and in the face of, this is a problem. And see, people complain about Twitter. This is one of the problems with Twitter. But reasonable people can filter this garbage out. Gallery of Shame. Piers Morgan fires back at criticism. So they have a picture of him with Ghislaine Maxwell. Whatever. Wow. I'm not a fan of Piers Morgan. I'm not defending Piers Morgan. But Dan Bilzerian did not kill. This is insane. These people that actually believe this are just, they've lost their lid. Let me go back to about a minute. I think it was a minute something into this thing. Where's it at? A minute 45, or where's this thing at? So hang on a second. Oh, this stupid thing is not telling me where I'm at here. Hang on a second.
Jewish people, you get canceled.
Okay, so let me see if I can get where this is at. Now I've got to find it again.
That's a pretty dramatic shift in your lifestyle.
Okay, that's not it. Let me get forward a little bit here.
You say what I thought was right.
I'm going to come to Israel because you've said a lot of controversial things about.
Okay, and that's where we start talking about. Yeah. Pablo says he's a trust fund baby. Yeah, the guy is absolutely clueless. It's unbelievable. He has no idea what he's talking about. Just like the reports I saw earlier today, people talking out their ass and all they're talking about. Well, the Jews misled us on the weapons of mass destruction. No, they didn't. The CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, where I worked at, I wasn't working there at the time, but later I saw it. It's comical. I worked at the Defense Intelligence Agency. And this is after the so-called weapons of mass destruction weren't found. But there were weapons of mass destruction. The Scud missiles that Iraq fired into Kuwait in Saudi Arabia when the war started in March of 2003 are weapons of mass destruction. They were banned by the United Nations. They were supposed to be disassembled. But they had dozens of them. Those are weapons of mass destruction. No, they weren't nuclear weapons. No, they weren't chemical weapons. But they are a weapon of mass destruction. And they were banned. But they had them. But they didn't get the big one they were going after. So apparently it was an intelligence failure. Well, the problem with this is that you have liars in the intelligence community. I began working at the Defense Intelligence Agency in 2004. At this point, all of those who were war hawks in the intelligence community who were screaming, but they have weapons, and they set Colin Powell up with all this information and briefed him and said, look at this, here's a radio intercept. They're talking about these irrigation pipes, but they're being used for nefarious purposes, and here's this and that. Well, all those people that did that in the intelligence community seem to get collective amnesia. And when I began working at the Defense Intelligence Agency in 2004, a lot of these career civilians. Now, I don't know about the military because they would have left there already because they would have rotated out by 2004. You normally spend 3 years or less in a military assignment. So the military people would have been gone who, by and large, wrote these things. So I really couldn't engage with them. But the civilians who are a permanent fixture there in these agencies were there. And we'd have conversations, and it was incredible. Here we are 3 years after after 9/11, and just 2 years after, 2.5 years after the going back into Iraq. And these people are running around Defense Intelligence Agency talking about, well, everybody knew there were no bloods mass destruction. Everybody knew. So I found that interesting. So I took note of who said that. And then I went back inside the classified wall because I worked in classified space. And I looked up reports that those people wrote regarding Iraq. Those who were claiming so vociferously inside the building that they would never have supported that. They came to a different conclusion. And almost to a man and woman, every one of these scumbags who said that had written reports insisting and making arguments on thin tissue of evidence at their disposal from intelligence sources that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and that Saddam Hussein was hiding them. The very people in the intelligence community, the apparatchik bureaucrats who were wrong, then jumped on the other side of the fence after the military people left, and they could say what they want. But I don't fall for that. That stuff is all searchable. I had access, and I looked it all up. And they're just liars. Outright liars. Liars. Unbelievable. The crap that people get away with. So they lied. And it wasn't Israel that convinced us to go to Iraq in 2003 or in 1990. It was Iraq's actions. And it was George Bush and George Bush, Senior and Junior, who took us there. And the defense establishment, the Pentagon, and the State Department. Even though they claim they were against it, they were for it before they were against it. It's unbelievable. But this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me see. So now he's going to talk about Israel. Let's see what he has to say.
That war. But before we get there, I just want to explore a little bit more your decision to kind of renounce the king lifestyle. And I think
okay, I don't want this king lifestyle. I don't care about that. I want to hear about Israel.
Yeah, and I think freedom as well. Freedom's a big piece of it.
Okay, I don't know. This guy is just a gas bag.
Worst terror attacks in modern history. What's heroic about that?
Oh, yeah, he called Sinjar heroic. Is this where he says it? Hang on.
He'll be back doing the other stuff before long. This is just a stunt because he's an Instagram guy. Why wouldn't it be? What do you say to that?
Well,
okay, so this, I think, is where he talks about Sinjar.
Well, I mean, I've pretty much stopped posting on Instagram. I haven't posted much in 4 years. And like I said, I don't really care that much about social media except for, speaking about things that I think the world needs to hear and that a lot of people are scared to say.
And what will those things be, Dan? What, please? We are listening. Inquiring minds want to know, Dan.
Well, let's talk about some of that because you've been very
Piers.
vocal about Israel in particular.
Here we go.
Even when Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, was killed by the IDF, you were out lauding him as a hero.
So he called him a hero. I didn't see where he called him a hero because I didn't know who this guy was until the viewers asked me to talk about him today. So I don't know if he said that on social media or he did on some sort of interview, but he was lauding as a hero. So let's hear what he has to say about that.
To most people, he's the despicable head of a terrorist organization that perpetrated on October the 7th one of the worst terror attacks in modern history.
Agreed, 100%. And a man who was in Israeli prison until they foolishly let him out of prison 7 months prior. And then he massacred 1,200 people. Christians, Jews, Muslims, Druze, Buddhists, Arabs.
What's heroic about that?
Well, I think when you look at it in a vacuum, it's a very different picture. It's kind of like if I, raped your mother and I kicked you in the nuts 3 times and then you punched me in the face and everybody just wanted to focus on you punching me in the face.
Okay, well, that's kind of distraction. I don't really know what he's talking about. Kick in the nuts, punch me in the face. We're going to focus on one thing. So what, is he going to use moral relevancy, moral equivalency here to explain away the horrors that occurred on October 7th?
I think that would be a very different conversation than when you looked at it, the whole of what happened and the whole of what happened.
October 7th happened. And before I haven't heard this part of the interview, before he launched into, well, the Muslim or the Palestinians were oppressed. That's a lie. Israel provided the water and the electricity virtually for free to Gaza for decades. And in return, they also allowed hundreds of thousands of Gazans to work in Israel, another country, gave them work visas, let them work there. And they also were rewarded for that with rocket attacks at schools, hospitals, clinics, farms, murdering civilians for years. And that's why the Iron Dome exists, because what Hamas did. So, no good deed goes unpunished, as Israel has discovered, but letting Sinwar out was the dumb thing. But let's see what his moral equivalency is here.
What happened was Nakba, that's where it started. You have 750,000 Palestinians that got displaced.
Nakba, 750,000 Palestinians got displaced. Now, why did 750,000 Palestinians get displaced? Might it be that the Palestinians, the Arabs, they weren't the Palestinians, the Arabs attacked the Jews in 1948 and tried to crush the nascent state of Israel before it came into existence, and then fled because they'd been murdering people? Might that be the reason why? I mean, so we talk about the Nakba, but there are 2 million Palestinians living in Israel proper. They carry Israeli passports. They have jobs there. They have homes. They own property. They serve in the Knesset. They serve in the IDF. They serve in the courts. They serve in the police. They run businesses. They're Muslims and Christians. So the Nakba, okay, this bizarre, it's like the Nazis. The Nazis had very close ties to Muslims in the Middle East. They did.
And then you've got multiple, acts of terror, in my opinion, on Israel's side that would make October 7th look like nothing.
All right, so here comes the moral equivalency. So one evil means another evil's okay. Well, that's horse manure. Wrong is wrong. But let's see if he details what the wrong deeds are that Israel supposedly committed in his mind. Let's see if he can actually back that up. Because apparently, according to people on X, Dan Bilzerian torched Piers. So far, I see no torching. I don't even see matches thus far.
So to me, I think it was a retaliation, and I think that Hamas is a resistance organization.
A retaliation. Again, he has not listed the offenses Israel supposedly committed, according to him. Now, I can run through a whole list of things Israel's done that are questionable. Their invasion of Lebanon in 1982 was questionable. I can go through that. We can talk about this at length, and that's a legitimate argument. But this guy, he's got nothing in his quiver. He just makes unfounded claims, yet on X, he torched Piers Morgan. Well, those people are just dishonest or intellectually stupid. Okay, let's see what else he's got to say. Oh, yes, it says it's a liberation organization. Really? A retaliation. So how about the Israeli offensive in Gaza now being termed a retaliation for 15 years of rockets fired into people's homes, into mosques, into synagogues, into schools and clinics? How, is that a retaliation? Well, I guess it's okay then in his mind.
And I think that Israel is a terrorist.
When did Israel kill 1,200 people in a single day and wound nearly 7,000?
Well, I mean, you have, Nakba, there was, what?
Oh, you mean Nakba? Yeah, that's the war the Arabs started, not the Israelis.
15,000 people killed during Nakba. I mean,
15,000 killed in a war they started in their combat fatalities.
There was Sabra and Shatila. I mean, that was 3,500 civilians. Then you have...
In a single day? No.
2014, they killed 1,500 civilians. 500 plus were kids. I mean, so...
Yeah, again, the context is left out of it. The Israelis didn't launch these things. Anyway, let's see if we can jump forward a little bit here with this guy.
Any one of those days would have been much worse than October 7th, but nobody really talks about
those
that.
didn't happen in a single day.
And October 7th, it's not nearly...
Again, so Piers Morgan pushed back and says those didn't happen in a single day. I mean, but Pierce's questions is stupid anyway. I mean, it's not about a single day. It's about the act.
As bad as what they say.
Well, those didn't happen in single days, as you know.
Well, I mean, you have... Sabra and Shatila, that was 3,500 people, so that was basically...
So he's going to quibble about this stuff. Let me see if we can get ahead a little bit further here.
Happening.
But when you say that October 7th wasn't as bad as people have said, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's a good question. What do you mean it wasn't bad? Did you not see the footage that the Hamas people themselves live streamed? That day I did. Did you not see the photographs they took? Did you not see how they mutilated the bodies of women they raped, executed? Did you not see that? Israel massacred more Palestinians the other way around. Be honest with yourself. About what, AB? Be honest about what? We're not talking about that. We're talking about Dan Bilzerian right now.
Because from Hamas's own boasting through their GoPro cameras, they mutilated, burned alive, raped and abused, beheaded some people, set fire to homes.
They absolutely did. I mean, they wanted people to see their atrocities. They were gleeful in it. They were gleeful in it. Sorry, I just received a message checking on it. So
they kidnapped babies. They kidnapped Holocaust survivors, grandparents. They did just about every act of depravity it is possible to do. And they didn't just do it. They gleefully posted it on.
Yeah, I mean, this is what gets me, the denial. I mean, you can have this conversation about moral equivalency, about one right and one wrong, but to deny that Hamas committed these acts on October 7th when they themselves publicized them. So did they publicize them to mislead us? Did Hamas make it all up? I mean, when they were live streaming, going through the fence, going over the barrier, coming in on ultralights, and then going through towns and shooting people and filming all that and live streaming that over social media, was that just, a Hollywood movie that Hamas put together? And if so, why did they do it? What was the purpose of it if it wasn't real? I mean, really?
On social media and the internet so that we could all watch in real time the horrors that they were perpetrating. It's hard to imagine a more horrific act than what happened that day. Why would you try to downplay it?
Well, I mean, there was only 2 babies killed from what I was told. And
oh, from what you were told. So who told you that? Who told you that? Oh, okay, so let's just stop right there, okay? There were only 2 babies killed. Only 2. I would argue that 1 was morally wrong. 1 was morally wrong. This moral equivalency, this people like this are dangerous, very dangerous.
1 was in the hospital and the other one was shot by a bullet. There was no babies in ovens. There was no, beheaded people that I saw.
That you saw. I'm sorry. You must have missed the footage. Did you miss the footage? I saw the Israeli soldiers who were decapitated by Hamas. They showed it to me. I mean, obviously he missed that. So, but to deny it's real because you didn't see it. I mean, I haven't seen Paris Hilton naked, but I'm sure she's a woman. At least that's what I'm told.
The rapes were disproven. So
the rates were disproven. Again, for those who are saying that Dan Bilzerian torched Piers Morgan. And again, I don't like Piers Morgan. But this is about the truth. And AB's talking about the truth hurts. The truth does hurt. Dan Bilzerian says they were disproven. By whom? Let's see if he tells us.
All that was Israeli propaganda. And the problem is
Israeli propaganda. Really? So, I mean, the only plausible explanation for that would be that Hamas's media wing is run by Israel. I mean, because it wasn't Israel. Or is he claiming that Israel actually went on the other side of the border in Gaza, drove through the border, flew over in ultralights, and then made a Hollywood film as propaganda so they could attack Gaza? I mean, Israel didn't need to do this provocation to attack Gaza. They could have attacked Gaza anytime they wanted. They get struck by missiles every day. So why would they do this? Doesn't make sense. AB says Israel is a colonial state and whoever supports them is a colonizer. Well, that's an opinion, AB, but not one shared by the 9 million residents of Israel, including nearly 3 million Arabs.
Has continued to lie and lie and lie, and they've been caught lying.
And how have they been caught lying? I'm sure Israel has been caught lying. They certainly got caught lying in the Puebla incident, but okay. AB says the reason why DNA test is banned is in Israel because the majority of them are Western European Americans. Actually, no, the majority are not Americans. The majority of Jews in Israel at the outset in 1948 was quickly Ashkenazi Jews from Europe. That's correct, particularly from Russia and what was left of the Soviet Union. There weren't many left in the rest of Europe who came there. That is true. However, mass influx of Israelis, of Jews from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon quickly changed the complexion of the population of Israel in the 1950s and the 1960s in particular. And then in the 1980s and 90s, the influx of hundreds of thousands of Ethiopian Jews further changed the demographics of Israel. So when you say that the majority of them are American, that's factually incorrect. It's factually incorrect. There are tens of thousands of Americans who are Jews who are there. But most Jews live not in Israel, but in the United States. Israel is not the largest Jewish state in the world. America has more Jews than any country in the world. And so what the hell does a DNA test have to do with anything? What does a DNA test have to do with anything? Exactly. The Western Europeans came and colonized land, then brought other Jews from other parts of the Middle East. Actually, the Jews were already there. Jews, Christians, Druze, and Muslims all lived in the Palestinian Mandate that was being run by the British after the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire, a region controlled for hundreds of years by the Ottomans, and before that by Alexander the Great and the Byzantines and everybody and their brother, the Persians. Everybody controlled it. There were no Palestinians. Anyway, so facts matter here, folks. Facts matter. But this guy doesn't know what a fact is if it smacked him upside the head. And I could see that he could probably take a big smack upside the head. He's a big fellow.
And they're the only ones that have actually been caught red-handed raping prisoners, and they've done
red-handed raping prisoners. The only ones caught. Really? Okay. All right. This guy is just so full of himself. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He looks dangerous.
And yet the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence.
Okay, well, we don't need to hear the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence. I know all about that. What I'm looking for, I think, is around, where is this? Probably about 18 minutes in. Hang on.
Apartheid that's going on here.
Apartheid is going here in the United States? Hang on, let's see what that is.
Class citizens and,
let's see what this is. Enlighten us, please, Dan Bilzerian.
But just to say, well, I read somewhere there were no rapes and abuse. It doesn't seem to me like you've really studied, or perhaps don't even want to study, the facts about all this, because it would go against
his own worldview. That's exactly what it sounds like. Exactly what it sounds like.
Narrative. Would that be fair?
I mean, look, I got no dog in this fight, Piers.
Obviously, you do have a dog in the fight. Otherwise, you wouldn't have posted all this garbage and be propagating nonsense.
I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Muslim. I'm just saying what I believe is right.
And what he believes is right based on what someone told him on social media. Like the 71 million people who voted for Kamala Harris. What someone told them in social media.
Let's just say there was rapes. I mean, I think that's terrible. But like I said, they are, an occupied state and.
Okay. So there's the bottom line. So he admits that the Hamas committed rape on October 7th, but they're an occupied state, so that makes it okay. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So back to AB, who said something about colonizers. AB, humans are colonizers. That's how we spread from Africa around the planet. We colonized the entire planet in multiple waves of people. The people in the Middle East are such a mix of people as a consequence of conquest, rape, and interbreeding that they're virtually indistinguishable at this stage. Arabs and Jews, they're the same damn people. He's speaking against Mossad agents who bribe the U.S. government. I would like to know who these Mossad agents are that bribe the U.S. government, because I could sure use some coin. 36 and a half years in the U.S. Army, wrote for the President of the United States, worked at the National Security Agency, worked at the Defense Intelligence Agency, taught at Iowa State University, taught at the Army War College, served U.S. Africa Command, U.S. European Command, worked in a dozen different embassies in Africa, worked in over 40 embassies in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. I've never once had anyone from Mossad approach me for anything, let alone a bribe. And I spent 30 years in the intelligence community, so I'd like to know where these bribes are coming from. Please step forward.
They're operating in apartheid. So when you are...
Apartheid. Here we go back to this again. All right, let's be very clear about this. I'm so sick of this being abused. First off, the word has been abused in the context of South Africa. Apartheid means separate development, separateness, essentially, and the concept was separate development. We see in South Africa today apartheid, voluntary apartheid, by people self-segregating, isolating themselves away from other communities, developing separately. That's what the intent behind apartheid was. Unfortunately, under the National Party, it morphed into racial segregation, racial exclusion, and just shameful conduct on the part of the National Party. That term was misappropriated, and it's being misappropriated again today by the EFF, by the ANC, by Arab nations, by Muslim extremists, by the so-called Palestinians. Apartheid. They're calling Israel an apartheid state. The problem with calling Israel an apartheid state is it's simply factually untrue. There is no separate development in Israel. I've lived in Israel. Muslims, Christians, Druze live side by side. They own property. They have cars registered. They vote in free elections. They have bank accounts. Nobody's excluded from any of those services or any full participation in society. People being excluded or being forced into separate development is what apartheid's all about. The West Bank of the Jordan River, which is Judea, and the Gaza Strip, which is Egypt, exist because the Palestinians that call themselves Palestinians, the Iraqis, the Jordanians, the Syrians, and the Egyptians attacked the Israelis in 1948 and tried to eliminate them. The Israelis committing atrocious crimes against humanity, some of them, including the Arabs and the Israelis, both committing atrocious crimes against humanity, rape, murder, and executions. They survived that onslaught. In 1956, the Arabs ganged up on them again and attacked them again. Israel did not take any territory as a consequence of they took some territory in 40. It took none in 50 and 56. In 1967, as the Arab states again built up their forces in preparation to launch an attack against the Israelis launched what famously became known as the Six-Day War. And in a matter of hours, destroyed virtually every aircraft in the Egyptian, the Syrian, and the Jordanian Air Force so they could never be a threat. And then the Israelis in blitzkrieg obliterated their Arab neighbors. It took control of the Sinai, Gaza, the Golan Heights, and the so-called West Bank, Judea. They returned the Sinai to Egypt under the Camp David Accords of 1978, reaching peace agreement that's lasted from 78 until today with Egypt. They maintained the Golan Heights because Syria was using it to fire artillery down on settlements below. So it's high ground, so they retained it. They retained Judea, a historical part of Israel, and they managed it. And they attempted to seek a two-state solution with the Palestinians who refused to accept it. Yasser Arafat, when offered that, and Ehud Barak lost his prime ministership because he offered more on the table than had ever been offered, including shared governorship of Jerusalem with the so-called Palestinians, and Yasser Arafat rejected it out of hand. He had no interest in peace. The Palestinians have no desire for peace. They have no desire for a two-state solution. The leaders of the Palestinian people simply want to eliminate the Jews and the Jewish state. Palestine was not a country before the Balfour Declaration. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. You've got to do some simple history there, AB. You've simply got to do some simple history. Do some simple research. There's Mossad in a lot of countries, especially U.S. Middle East. Oh, I have no doubt of that, AB. And there's probably CIA in a lot of those countries. And there's probably MI6 or MI5, whichever the one is that goes abroad. They're probably there too. And the Bundesnachrichtendienst, yeah, and Russian intelligence. I'm sure everybody's got agents all over the world. It's kind of how the world works, man. To think otherwise is naive. Israel's definition of apartheid state. No, it's not. Dude, you're the Kool-Aid you're drinking is really unhealthy. Israel is a democracy and the U.S. ally, international community of intelligence agencies working together correctly. Epstein was working with U.S. intelligence. And your evidence for this is what? Why would Epstein be working with U.S. intelligence? I was in U.S. intelligence for 30 years, never heard of this guy Epstein. Now, admittedly, the intelligence community is huge, and I worked at different places at different times, so maybe Epstein was in a place I wasn't at. But I never heard of this Epstein guy until the whole thing got revealed. So why would Epstein be working with U.S. intelligence? To what end? Most U.S. intelligence agencies are barred by law from operating in the United States. The CIA can't operate in the United States. Army intelligence can't operate in the United States. We operate in an analytical perspective. We can't do collection here. The Marine Corps intelligence can't. The National Security Agency can't do intelligence collection here. It's all illegal. And if people are caught, they're put in jail. We are allowed to collect abroad. The only ones allowed to collect intelligence in the United States are the the Department of Energy with the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. They are allowed to collect intelligence here in America, as well as the FBI. They have a counterintelligence mission in America. But the rest of us can't collect intelligence. Well, I'm not in the community anymore, but can't collect it. So how would did Epstein have some information about something happening abroad? Would that be who he's communicating with? Judge Napolitano's, no, I haven't, Michael. What did he have to say? Let's hear some more from our esteemed historian, Dan Bilzerian.
Up in an open-air prison, there's going to be resistance. And how that...
An open-air prison. An open-air prison. So they have no houses, there's no electricity, there's no water. It's just an open-air prison. They just all congregate in the yard. They're all there. Strange. Open-air prison. So all those Palestinians that were working in Israel, weren't really working there. They weren't allowed to enter Israel and go about their business, do shopping there, work there, and then go home. Yeah, I guess that was all fantasy.
That resistance manifests itself as, it's going to be violent.
Resistance manifests is going to be violent. I'm sorry, Gandhi was never violent. Gandhi changed the entire history of the world. He was nonviolent. He was nonviolent in the Boer War as a stretcher bearer. He was nonviolent as an attorney in South Africa calling for change. He was nonviolent in India, changed the entire history of the world. Mahatma Gandhi. Martin Luther King was nonviolent. He changed the history of the United States. So resistance has to be violent. Dan Bilzerian, you're really not very well informed in history, brother.
Actually, I mean, if you kill enough people and you take enough land and you treat people like second-class citizens and
treat people like second-class citizens. Israel has no political control over Gaza. None. Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2008, I think it was. It's turned it over to the Palestinians. So how are they treating people like second-class citizens there? Hamas governs Gaza, not Israel. Dan. Epstein's girlfriend, Maxine Ghislaine, her father, was a Mossad agent. Well, I don't know about that. There's been a lot of claims, but what does that have to do with anything? Yes, Robert Maxwell, who ran the European newspaper and died a suspicious death off of a yacht in the Caribbean in the 1990s. I'm very familiar with Robert Maxwell. AB, that's funny. You said, I can't be that naive. You're the one who's being naive. You're taking Robert Maxwell, whom no one has proven is a Mossad agent, but he could have been. And because he had a daughter named Ghislaine, who was Epstein's boyfriend, then suddenly it's a Mossad operation? Good Lord.
And you're stealing land in the West Bank, and you're just basically...
Stealing land in the West Bank. Okay, first off, Dan Bilzerian, who later complains that the Jews murdered the Armenians. That's the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard in my life. The Arabs forfeited the West Bank, Judea. They attacked the Jews over and over again, and they lost the land. The fact that Israel didn't evict all of the Arabs that live in the West Bank is a sign of magnanimity. Generous.
Encroaching these people's human rights on a daily basis, there's going to be repercussions. So, I'm not going to be the judge or jury, and I'm not going to condemn these people for...
But you have condemned them, and you've lied about them. How is it that he's being interviewed by Morgan? What is his educational, practical knowledge of subject to get on? I don't know. See, Michael, I'm not on major shows. I actually know what the hell I'm talking about here. I'm on some programs. I'm on Alex Newman's program. I've been on John B. Wells' program. I've been on a lot of programs in South Africa and the Netherlands and elsewhere, Australia. But don't get invited on programs like this because I don't, roid up and run around and pretend to be some celebrity, I guess. This is just crazy.
For fighting back, I think nobody had an issue with, South African apartheid and their resistance. So I don't...
Excuse me? No one had an issue with South African apartheid and their resistance. Actually, a lot of people took issue with Mkhonto we Sizwe blowing up bars and shopping malls and murdering innocent civilians, including some members of Mkhonto we Sizwe who had issues with that. So to say nobody took issue with it is just nonsense, utter nonsense. Violence is not the answer.
I don't know why there's an issue with the resistance in the clear apartheid that's going on here.
Okay, again, clear apartheid. Israel does not control Gaza. Hamas controls Gaza, and the Palestinians voted for Hamas. They had one election, and Hamas has abrogated elections ever since then. So you want to talk about separateness, it's being perpetrated by Hamas, not Israel.
You went on a Patrick Bet-Davis podcast. He's a friend of this show. You said the Jews killed JFK.
The Jews killed JFK. Why would Jews kill JFK? I wish people get the conspiracy straight. Did the Soviets do it? Did the Jews do it? Did Walt Disney do it? Who killed JFK?
And that Israel wanted October the 7th to happen so that they, Israel, had a reason to take the...
Okay, let me just dismiss that. As I said, for over 15 years, Hamas has launched rockets into Israel at schools, clinics, military bases, residential areas, murdering Israeli citizens. Hence the reason for the development of the Iron Dome air defense system. That's reason enough. Israel didn't need an excuse to invade Gaza. In fact, they showed restraint. It was 2 weeks after the butchery that occurred on October 7th before they even crossed the border in large-scale troop movement. So this is just stupid.
Land. Let's just discuss those two things. What do you mean the Jews killed
So it's a Mossad operation. Everything's a Mossad operation by Mr. Bilzerian.
Mossad operation. And they've committed multiple false flag attacks. I mean, the USS Liberty, you've got the Levin affair. I mean,
why would Israel kill JFK? It doesn't even give a plausible reason. I mean, at least if you're going to come up with conspiracy theory, come up with something plausible that we can sink our teeth in and go, aha, yeah, you're making sense there. He just makes a claim there. Right. They need the shock value of his delusional arguments. You're correct, Rivani.
So they've got a history of doing this, and I don't think it's crazy to think that they were involved in that assassination.
So you don't think it's crazy to think, but you offer no evidence. Yet anti-Semitic Jew haters are all over Twitter going, Dan torched Piers Morgan. Good God. People are crazy.
And that's the reason that Trump didn't want to, release those files. And I think
Trump didn't want to release the files. The Epstein files? Trump's not the president. Joe Biden's been the president for nearly 4 years. He could have released the Epstein files. Couldn't he? Unless, of course, it's not a federal crime that was being committed. Then it would be the state authorities. So what does Trump have to do it? Why do you want me to explain the ancient kingdom of Israel, Pablo, Charlie? You know what it is. Why do you want me to explain it?
Clearly it had to be embarrassing. Otherwise, why wouldn't he want to release it? And that's the only thing that I could think of that would be embarrassing, because everybody from that time is pretty much dead by now. So it would make sense. I mean, they wanted to cut off, it's now AIPAC, but the Zionist, organization that was doing all the funding that should have been registered as a foreign entity.
So the Zionist organization was doing all the funding. The funding of whom? Whom? Donald Trump? Are you claiming Donald Trump was funded by Zionists? Oh, you don't know much about it. Sorry, Pablo. We'll save it for another time. I want to focus on this.
And, he wanted to register them under FARA. He wanted to, take away their ability to have nukes. And, they didn't.
Take away whose ability to have nukes? I'm sorry, it's a little confusing. Israel has nuclear weapons. So who are we taking that away from? Iran. That's about the only one.
Like that. So I believe that they killed JFK.
Oh, we wanted to keep Israel from getting nukes in 1963. So Israel killed JFK. What?
But just to be clear, you have absolutely no evidence that any Jews killed JFK, do you? Nothing.
No.
Well, I mean, that's not true. I mean, Jack Rubenstein, that was the person that killed the supposed Patsy Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean,
Jack Rubenstein. Jack Ruby. And the fact, even if Jack Ruby was Jewish, how does that prove that the Jews killed JFK?
He was a Jewish mob guy. And
Jewish mob guy. There are a lot of Jews in the mob. A lot of Italians in the mob, too. A lot of Armenians, a lot of Russians. It's not exclusive.
And, there's been numerous documentaries tying the,
Ooh, documentaries. Oh, what, from Netflix? Are these Netflix documentaries, Dan?
Jewish mafia, the CIA. I mean, I wasn't there.
No, you weren't there. You were born in 1980, and you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. You didn't have to be there to know what you're talking about, but you don't.
But everything that I've seen evidence-wise points to Israel.
Everything I've seen evidence-wise. Okay, so Piers is asking for the evidence in the Jewish plot to kill JFK. All the evidence he's seen. So what's the evidence? Please tell us about the evidence, brother. We're here for the evidence. Show us the digits.
Really?
And they're doing it in Epstein Island. They did it in Epstein Island. I mean,
Epstein Island. JFK was killed in 1963. Epstein didn't start Epstein Island in 1963.
Yeah, but here's the problem I have with this. You say everything you've seen, right? It just seems to me like you see a lot of conspiracy theory stuff. I've read a lot about the JFK assassination. There is zero evidence that any Jews killed John F. Kennedy. Zero.
Correct.
Unless you want to go off into some mad conspiracy theory rabbit hole. I say to you that you make these big statements and you have a huge following of people.
He does. So there's just a lot of really crazy people out there believe anything they hear. AB says, since October 7th, the whole world saw the true colors of the colonial state of Israel. How so, AB? The true colors of the colonial state of Israel. How so? And why October 7th? Why did Israel turn Gaza over to the Arabs in the first place? They could have continued. Why did they leave in 2008? See, your arguments don't carry any reality. They're not based on reality, AB. I don't know who AB is, but you're saying Israel's a colonial state. Well, Israel had complete control of Gaza, and they relinquished it in 2008 in an effort to help create a two-state solution, which the Palestinians don't want. Israel owns and controls the West Bank, but it doesn't kick Arabs out of there. So I don't really understand where you're coming from there, brother. You just you're just making stuff up. What are the true colors of Israel as a colonial state when it relinquished territory? It relinquished territory. It just doesn't fly. It doesn't make any sense.
Many of whom will think, well, wow, if Dan Bilzerian says it, maybe it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
And that way, I would argue, this is how a lot of conspiracy theory stuff in the end gets propagated and promoted to the detriment of society. Because people like you who are very smart, there's no question of...
Oh, no. I'm sorry, Piers Morgan. He's not very smart. Don't compliment your guest who is a wackadoodle who has no idea what he's talking about. This guy is off the deep end crazy. He is batshit crazy, full of nonsense.
That, and very successful.
Well, he's very successful. I'll give him that. But being successful doesn't mean talented or smart. It really doesn't.
And made a lot of money being very successful. I'm just curious why you want to be so inflammatory without actually having any evidence. And as you say, to just sit back and say, well, I wasn't there. Well, I wasn't there. Obviously, I wasn't even born. But I know that there were there's no credible evidence that Jewish people killed JFK. And yet you just say it as a fact, as if somehow we should just believe this.
No, I didn't say it as a fact. I said that's what I believe. And if
No. See, he's backtracking now. He said, I have the evidence. If you have evidence, then it's not what you believe, it's what you're presenting as evidence. But you failed to produce the evidence repeatedly. This guy is a quack. I mean, he just looks a little, he looks a little out there. By the way, why does he have American citizenship when he swore citizenship and fealty to Armenia and then fought in a war for them as a soldier? That normally gets you stripped of your citizenship.
if you look at the history of people that have criticized Israel, Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, JFK, Nixon, they all have similar fates. And
similar fates. I'm sorry. So Richard Nixon was killed by Libyans in the desert after he butchered civilians in Benghazi. I don't think that's what happened to Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was assassinated. No, that's not what happened to Nixon. Wow, this guy is just way out there, absolutely batcrap crazy.
So I don't think that's a coincidence. I also think...
Well, it's not a coincidence. It's not even related. JFK's assassination has nothing to do with Nixon's fragile ego and the stupidity of bugging the White House hotel, or the Watergate hotel, when he had the election sewn up. It just his paranoia did him in, and he committed crimes. And he was forced to resign as a consequence. It has nothing to do with Jews. It has nothing to do with JFK. It has nothing to do with Muammar Gaddafi. And by the way, Muammar Gaddafi, see, these are people who don't know what they're talking about. Muammar Gaddafi was among the most dangerous enemies of the United States until the United States went into Iraq in 2003. When the United States went into Iraq in 2003, one of the U.S. intelligence and Western allied intelligence community's best friends on the planet was Muammar Gaddafi. Because Gaddafi saw that Bush was serious about going after transgressors. And Libya stopped being a problem child and cooperated with Western intelligence and turned over the names and locations of many, many, many terror suspects. Yep, that's a fact. We rolled up terror networks around the world courtesy of Muammar Gaddafi, who betrayed his friends in the PLO, who betrayed his friends in the IRA, who betrayed his friends in so many terror movements. That's what he did. And we paid him a fortune for that. And he was our best friend in the intelligence community. And Libya was not a problem for the U.S. So the Arab Spring, which was the outgrowth of Barack Hussein Obama's juvenile, idiotic, naive, stupid, brain-dead, moronic foreign policy, and led to the deaths of over 1 million people in the Middle East, and horrific destruction of life, including the destruction and wiping out the Yazidi Christians, all because Barack Hussein Obama's stupidity. That led to the downfall of Muammar Gaddafi, as citizens wanted freedom of expression, freedom of worship, freedom of assembly, and not the oppressive totalitarian state that Muammar Gaddafi had in place, which we were fine with as a government. The West didn't care because it was a stable state. But then it fell apart. And Arabs took him out. That has nothing to do with Richard Milhouse Nixon. Nixon was impeached, not murdered. Yep. The Arabs left or fled because the other Arab countries assured them they would win in 48 as the Jews. Yep. Arabs keep referring incorrectly to the Nakba as the cause of Palestinians being ousted. It's not true. They weren't ousted. I again ask why the Palestinian people only focus on Israel when they can just cut ties and focus on trading with Egypt. They're also on the border of Gaza. Correct. How is it incorrect, though? Israel did ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian Arabs through their violent displacement, dispossession of land and property. When did they do this? 1947, 48? No, they were attacked by the Palestinians, by the Arabs, and they defended themselves. And then they ran away because they were assured, as Charles said, by the Egyptians, by the Syrians, by the Transjordanians. Remember that the West Bank that the Palestinians are claiming isn't even Palestine. It's part of Jordan. It's part of Jordan. And Gaza is part of Egypt. It's not part of Palestine. There's no such place. Why did Bibi fire his defense minister? Because they were at odds. They were arguing over defense policy, and Bibi's the prime minister, so he won.
That today, a lot of, quote unquote conspiracy theories have all come true. So, about, 2-3 years.
All come true. Well, yeah, we've seen a few conspiracy theories come true. I mean, you throw enough shit against the wall, some of it's bound to stick.
Years ago, being a conspiracy theorist, you were a nut job, wacko, whatever. And
Yeah, they are nut job wackos, like this guy.
now it's just like every single one of them seems to be coming true, coming to fruition. So
All becoming true. Okay, well, AB says that Israel's a colonial state. So, I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a political position. Qatar funded the Libyan rebels, yet people blame the... Exactly. And Qatar bombed Libya. Stand by the good judge, the most powerful nation in the history of the U.S. Syria blew up like a powder keg under Obama. True. Charles says, people seem to overlook the fact that Gaza shares a border with Egypt. The Gazans are in a concentration camp. Why do they not just use the back door to Egypt? Exactly. See, this is just lies. And the problem is that most people don't know geography, and very few people actually know history, Charles. And so they are hoodwinked by the likes of Dan Bilzerian, who doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, and they're hoodwinked by the comments that AB is saying here. I don't even know. AB might be genuine in AB's position here, but AB is wholly ignorant of facts and history. This is a statement of fact, not an attack on AB. I'm just simply stating the facts here. The West Bank, as it's called, is the West Bank of the Jordan River. That was part of Jordan. Let's pull up some maps here. All right, here we go. Maps. Map of the Middle East in 1918. Okay. All right, 12. That's not right. 19. There we go. Map of the Middle East in 1918. Let's see if I can't find a map. Okay. This is one drawn by, where's World War I shaped out? Here we go. Okay. Well, that's the one drawn by Lawrence of Arabia. I'm trying to pull it up. Here we go. This is the map of by Lawrence of Arabia, okay? All right. So this is what he said. And you're going to see Palestine on this map. This is a map drawn by a British officer. He's got Armenians up here in Turkey, French here, Arabs, Iraq under Abdullah, Arabs under Faisal, the French up here, what became Lebanon, and what he calls Palestine over here, and the Sinai. But the Sinai runs all the way up to the Dead Sea. All the way up to the Dead Sea. No foreign power than Great Britain to be allowed any voice in the government of the country south of this line. That's a map that he made to serve the British interest. Let's take a look at a map of Middle East in 1900. Okay? See if I can't find one around 1900. Okay? Rhino Razor, thank you for subscribing, Rhino. I appreciate that. Okay, that's not accurate. That's not a true map of that time. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Okay. So I'm looking for a map here. That's the Phoenicians. I'm not looking for the Phoenicians. Okay. So here's what the Middle East looked like in 1914. That's what I'm looking for. Here you go. That's what I should have done. 1914. So you get the Ottomans in green. It runs down to what's Yemen today in the western part of the Saudi Peninsula, up through Jerusalem, Amman, Damascus, all of Asia Minor, and then Istanbul, and then Baghdad. That is, there's no Palestine on there. That's Ottoman Empire in 1914. 1914. That's the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so let's go. The Sykes-Picot Treaty carved up the Middle East. Okay. So this is what the Sykes-Picot came up with. All right. And this is what the British and French Sykes and Picot came up with. French control included Turkey and this part up here. Independent Arab state in the French sphere of influence became Syria. Independent Arab state in the sphere of British influence became Iraq. And then part of most of what is Jordan today. And you see what's called the West Bank there. That was international control, British control up at Haifa. So there's no Palestine there, okay? So here you go. This is in 1850, going back a little ways, the Ottoman Empire. All of that is Ottoman Empire. There's no Palestine there. Yep. Middle East today. Well, that's a different language is spoken there. So anyway, but I'm not finding what I'm looking for here. Anyway, ethnic groups. There you go. Look at that. Anyway, so back to where we're at here. So this is bigger than the U.S. Which issue is that? Yeah, the Ottoman Empire still existed in 1918, but the map I have of 1918, the one I could find in a quick search, was the one that Lawrence of Arabia drew. Palestine was renamed that from Israel and Judea by the Romans. Exactly. Yeah, after Maccabean revolt. Yep. Palestinians have privilege to benefit from all the resources of rich established countries such as Israel without having to serve in the IDF, unlike other citizens. That's true. Map of 1945. Let's do that. Map of Middle East map 45. Yeah, because it's before the partition. 1945. Here you go. There you go. That's the one I'm looking for. That's the oil fields. Well, that's a concession, so that really doesn't help me. So that's not going to help. That's the oil field concessions. That's not what I'm looking for. I can't find a good map of 45. This is strange. Yep, not finding a good map of 1945. Anyway, so they're there somewhere. Just can't find them right now. Let's try 1948. Gosh, I'm warm in this hoodie. Whew. Here we go. Okay, that's not... God bless, it's really warm. Whew. You know, I hate when a search turns up something and then it doesn't show you what it turned up. It's very annoying when it does that. So, okay, here you go. So here you go. 1947, 1948, and July 48. This is actually a pretty good map here. So the United Nations partitioned the Palestinian Mandate in 1947. The proposed Jewish state was designed by the United Nations, not by Israel. So the gray on the left map was proposed Jewish state. And then the proposed Arab state included the central part of Israel, the northern part with Nazareth, and then you've got Gaza and part of the Negev on there. In 1948, Arab armies invaded from Lebanon, from Syria, over the Golan Heights. Iraqi troops came in through Transjordan, and the Jordanians went across. And they attacked the Jews from all over. And they nearly wiped them out. In July of 1948, the Israeli army counterattacked and drove them out. And the modern boundaries of Israel were established, minus the Golan Heights, what is known as the West Bank, and Gaza. Yep. So that is how it really worked. That's what happened. AB is not offended at the end of the day. There's actually instances of answers saying, well, innocent people are dying. You're right, AB, and that's the sad part. That's the sad part. Let's try 1980. Okay, Israel 1980 map. Well, I'm glad you're not offended, because I have no intention to offend anybody. I'm just simply pointing out that this guy's a wackadoodle who's saying this stuff, not you, the dude who's saying this. 1980s. Trying to find the map. See, the maps are being scrubbed that have Transjordan. Yeah, I can't find one. They keep getting scrubbed online. That's really strange. Go to a library and you'll find the stuff. Anyway, let me listen to some more of this guy and see what you guys got to say here. Palestine will be free in the Ottoman Empire because that's how the land was drawn on the maps back in the day before the British Empire started drawing maps. Well, the Ottomans redrew the map, and the Persians redrew the map, and Alexander the Great redrew the map, and the Phoenicians redrew the map, and the Romans redrew the map. So the map has been redrawn since time immemorial. Muslims did not exist in Jesus' time. They're the youngest major religion in the world, not established until 623 or something like that. BBC should argue the IDF to take entire area. It's nonsense. Two-state solution. Well, that's Pablo's position. All right, let me just play a bit more of this guy.
I don't know. I mean, I think once you see the government lie to you and lie to you on a scale like they did during COVID, you start questioning a lot of things.
Well, we do question a lot of things, but we question things that are questionable, not things that fit our narrative.
And I think it's healthy to question things. And I think one of the big reasons why I've marched down this path so far is because once I started questioning Israel and once I started speaking out against Israel, I saw the ramifications and I saw the pushback. And the side of right is usually never the side that's silencing people.
Well, that's a fair statement. I'll give Dan Bilzerian that. The side that's silencing people is not the side of right. You're not on the side of angels when you silence others. That's simply a bad idea. So I've got Google Africa. It works when it wants to at its own pace. British had to do something since the Ottomans dropped everything like a hot potato when it collapsed. They did. Yeah, Charles, the guy just makes up stuff. Anyway, this Dan Bilzerian guy.
You know, the people that are on the right side of history are not the ones trying to, cut off free speech.
I agree, 100%. And that's why I find South Africa's law so repressive and undemocratic and anti-liberty. When you can go to prison for calling someone an Arabic slur, there's something wrong with people. There's a society that's rotten from within. When you can sue someone for their claims that something's a hoax and you get a $1.5 billion settlement, that's not free speech. No one was harmed by his statement. Their feelings were hurt. That's not harm.
Punish people for what they say.
You think the Jews killed Gaddafi as well?
Israel. I think that they have way too much control in our government, and I think it is not.
Okay, this time he simply obfuscated. He was asked directly if he thought that the Jews killed Gaddafi. And he says suddenly our government's controlled by the Jews. That's not the same thing.
Not coincidence that everybody that's been critical of Israel has, either been overthrown, Shah of Iran, like every single person that's been.
The Shah of Iran was not overthrown by Jews. The Shah of Iran was not overthrown by the CIA. The Shah of Iran was propped up by the CIA and the U.S. government. The Shah of Iran was propped up by us, not overthrown by us. And he certainly wasn't overthrown by Jews. He was overthrown by this guy's friends.
Been critical of Israel has either been killed or thrown out of power. And I don't.
Everyone's been critical, has been killed or thrown to Israel. I've been critical of Israel. I've been thrown out of power. I've been critical of Israel over its invasion of Lebanon in 1982. I've been critical of Israel over its handling of a number of things. I
think that is a coincidence. I mean, the reason we fought a lot of these wars is because of Israel.
Okay, this is the part I really want to talk about. It took me an hour and 12 minutes to get to this point. So this clown claims that the reason we fought wars is because of Israel. Well, first off, Israel didn't exist when the United States in an expansionist colonial war fought the Spanish-American War in 1898. Israel had nothing to do with that. That was all us. And it was all lies by our government. Israel had nothing to do with the First World War. We intervened in that war. Had nothing to do with Israel. They didn't exist. Israel had nothing to do with the Second World War. We intervened to end fascism. Had nothing to do with it. Israel had nothing to do with our struggle against the Soviet Union, against communism. We did that of our own volition. Israel played no role. Israel played no role in the United States intervention in Korea in 1950 when the North Koreans crossed the demilitarized zone, attacked South Korea, and pushed UN forces back to the Pusan perimeter. There were no Jews. There was no Israel involved. None. Israel played no role in the United States' foolish decision to take over responsibility under the concept of the domino theory when the French had to withdraw after their debacle at Dien Bien Phu in 1954 in Vietnam. We became involved in Vietnam. Had nothing to do with Jews, nothing to do with Israel. In fact, he claims that the Jews killed JFK. JFK is the one who took us into Vietnam. JFK put 17,000 military advisors in South Vietnam. JFK did that. But he was killed by the Jews, according to this guy. His arguments make no sense whatsoever. Why would the Jews kill JFK when they're pushing us into our wars? Thank you, Charmaine, for becoming a silver supporter. I really do appreciate it. It's very kind of you. This doesn't make any sense. He's talking out of his ass. I mean, that's right there. Everything he said, you just break it down right there. He claims JFK was killed by Jews, by Mossad. Why would the Mossad kill JFK if Mossad's goal is to drive America into wars for the benefit of Mossad? How did Vietnam benefit Israel? It didn't. If anything, it distracted America from supporting Israel in the 1960s and 70s. This guy is a moron.
Israel lied to us. They told us that there was weapons of mass destruction.
And so did Australia and Germany and France and the United Kingdom and the Defense Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency. Yeah, and the CIA, they all lied to us. They all got it wrong. But it's all the Jews' fault. It's all Mossad's fault. This guy is cuckoo, cuckoo.
You know, we fought many wars on their behalf.
Many wars on their behalf. Which wars are those? What wars are those? We reflagged vessels in the Persian Gulf in the 1980s. That wasn't a war. We bombed a baby milk factory in Sudan, and we bombed Afghanistan under Clinton. We went into Lebanon with peacekeepers. That was not for Israel. That was a UN mission. But I guess the UN's run by Jews too. But it's amazing how much power this little country of 9 million people with just 6 million Jews, the power they exert over the world. It's amazing. Yeah. So what wars? In the Sahel? Nope. In Iraq the first time? Nope. In Iraq second time? Nope. Nope. So what wars have we gone into for the benefit of Israel? Please enlighten us, oh grand wizard Dan Bilzerian.
So their influence cannot be...
Oh, no, Brian. He knows about the pogroms, but he blames that on the Jews. He blames the Holodomor on Jews. This guy is certifiable. He blames the Soviet Holodomor, the murder of millions of Ukrainian peasants, on Jews.
Disputed, and the people that we continuously fight just happen to be their natural enemies, and they
well, maybe that's because the people that we fight are people who are demented and abusing their so-called religion and tarnishing the reputation of a billion Muslims with their fanatical version of Islam and its hatred for Jews, Christians, and anyone else. Maybe that's why we share natural enemies, Dan. I mean, it's not like Islam fanatics are friends of Christianity. Most Muslims have no problem with Christians. Most Christians likewise with Muslims. But the fanatics hate Christians and Jews alike. Maybe that's why we have a natural affinity.
Have influence on what we do. And that's my biggest issue. That's actually one of the reasons why I kind of started marching down this path, is because I see how much control Israel has over our government.
And what is this control? Dan, please enlighten us. I'm ready. Here we go. Inquiring minds want to know, Dan.
It's not healthy. And I see our politicians acting on behalf of Israel instead of on behalf of what is best for the United States. And that is, as a veteran, where I really have fucking...
As a veteran, okay, did he serve in the U.S. military? I can't find any information saying he served in the U.S. military. I know he betrayed America by taking an oath to Armenia and claims to have fought in a war for Armenia. So this is on his show. And okay, the colorful language.
And I see our politicians acting on behalf of Israel instead of on behalf of what is best for the United States. And that is, as a veteran, where I really have fucking, huge problems with this.
I'm sure you do, but when you say that,
Huge problems with this as a veteran. A veteran what? Of Armenia's conflict or of U.S. military?
What was it you said? That Jewish people said there were weapons of mass destruction. I mean, it was President Bush. He's not Jewish. It was Colin Powell.
He's not
Jewish. He wasn't Jewish, as far as I'm aware. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you're talking about 0.2% of the population. So obviously every single person in there is not Jewish, but it is benefiting Jewish interests, and we are operating on behalf of Israel. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
we're operating on behalf of Israel. Okay, so all of our actions benefit exclusively Israel. So the United States patrolling of global sea lanes and being the world's policeman in the maritime domain benefits exclusively Israel. Not South Africa, not West Africa, not Europe, not Japan, not China. What a crock of nonsense. What a crock of nonsense. Yeah, Charles, he leaves it open. But I know that he claimed to serve in Armenia, and he became a citizen. He and his father and brother flew to Armenia and took an oath. So that should have abrogated their American citizenship.
saying all of our politicians are Jewish.
I mean, it's not like he migrated here and was a citizen of another country and then became an American and then claimed dual nationality. This is a person who went to a foreign country and swore an oath of fealty to the government of Armenia while he was born American citizen. He should be stripped. He claimed he's a Navy SEAL. I've seen no record of that. Let's see. Let's see if I can't find something on this guy. So hang on a second. Let's see if I can't find it. So he's a Navy SEAL. Dan Bilzerian. No, that's not what I want. Dan Bilzerian. Okay. Navy SEAL. No, Dan Bilzerian is not a Navy SEAL. He did discuss his experiences with the Navy SEALs in an interview. In 2018, his family traveled to Armenia to become citizens and joined the Armenian Armed Forces. While there, he visited a shooting range and fired weapons. He's not a Navy SEAL. He's full of shit. Here's an actual veteran saying, I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing not to make it through BUDS. That's the qualification school. I didn't even make it to BUDS or anything like that. I just thought it was interesting that this guy had been a former Navy and had done BUDS before he became a multimillionaire. Don't believe a word of anything Bilzerian says. I drove from Athens, Georgia to be the prime PSD AIC on a startup company for the BSers in 2006. On my dime down to Tampa, their monster mansion house was under foreclosure after being watched by every law enforcement agency in 3 nearby states, stripped clean of furniture, just waiting for the Bilzerian's father to step on his crank. The coke and dope-fueled son, Dan, was blasting away in the backyard lake with his suppressed 45. All full of war stories from his wannabe SEAL days. Lake houses were built fairly close, and when Sonny Dan started blasting away, I left the house in a hurry. Yeah. Anyway, this guy is not a Navy SEAL. He's another bullshitter. People believe this nonsense. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, anyway. Armenians are primarily Christians. That's why the Ottoman Turks wiped them out. Correct. He's a trust fund baby. That he is.
But what I am saying is that Israel has dirt and blackmail on our politicians. That's the only way to explain why they put the interests of Israel above our countries.
Okay, so for the thick-headed in the crowd, which I don't believe is anybody here, but the United States does not put Israel's interest above that of the United States, unless Joe Biden is in charge. Even Barack Obama didn't put the interest of Israel ahead of the United States. But Joe Biden definitely puts foreign interest above our own because he's bought and paid for agent of these foreign countries, Ukraine, China, among others. So the United States, as I pointed out, protected the world's access to affordable and reliable energy sources, which are necessary for the running of a modern world. We did that at our expense. That's why we intervened in the Persian Gulf oil tanker reflagging. That's why we intervened in the Red Sea. That's why we intervened in the Gulf War in 1990. And that's why we intervened again in 2003.
You see that. I mean, Look, I truly believe that Epstein Island was a Mossad operation, and they have dirt on our politicians, and they've done plenty of these, and that is why they control our country. I mean,
Epstein Island was a Mossad operation. Okay. All right, buddy. What's your evidence? Now, this time he doesn't offer evidence. He says he believes, so he's giving his opinion. Okay. All right. Give me something plausible I can hold on to, buddy.
explain it out. Why else would our country be doing everything in Israel's benefit to our own detriment?
To our own detriment. What are we doing to our own detriment? A lot of things. Funding Ukraine. Israel has nothing to do with that. Yeah. Ignoring North Korea. Israel has nothing to do with that. Ignoring the Sahel. Israel has nothing to do with that. Understaffing embassies in Africa and defunding our operations in Africa. Israel has nothing to do with that. That's not for Israel's benefit. That is for Joe Biden's benefit. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Trevor, these Jew-hating clowns make me sick.
Israel doesn't do anything for us.
Really? Israel doesn't do anything for us. He's claimed that Israel has Mossad agents all over the place. Well, in fact, we do intelligence sharing with the Israelis and many other countries. Israel is a beacon of democracy in the Middle East. Israel provides us advance warning on a number of situations taking place around the world. Israel is a trade hub. It's a technology center. It is the country that ensures the stability of one of the most holy sites on the planet to three major religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and that is the city of Jerusalem. Israel does an awful lot for the United States, a lot more than Dan Bilzerian does.
Why would we be doing that?
But we know why America and the UK, for that matter, Tony Blair, because I spoke to him about it at length at the time. We know why they went to war with Saddam Hussein in 2003. They went because they believed he had weapons of mass destruction.
No, that's the problem. Piers Morgan is not very bright either. That's part of it. Having served in the intelligence community and the defense establishment when that war took place, we went there for multiple reasons. The weapons of mass destruction is the only thing these dim-witted so-called journalists and dim-witted academics can latch onto because it gives them an erection. It wasn't simply because of weapons of mass destruction. That's moronic, it's uninformed, it's stupid, and it's lazy journalism. So Piers, so if anybody thinks I'm defending Piers Morgan, right there, it's pretty obvious I'm not, because he's not much brighter than this guy, Dan Bilzerian. It's just unbelievable. But he has the erudite accent of the British high class, and therefore he gets his program. Where is this play on anyway? He used to be on CNN, didn't he, Piers Morgan?
They were the ones who argued it. None of the senior people that argued it for America or the UK, in terms of Tony Blair, George Bush, Colin Powell, were Jewish. This idea that somehow Israel was orchestrating that war, I think is completely nonsensical. I mean,
well, and I'd have to agree with Piers Morgan. It's completely nonsensical. It makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. Can someone please explain the link to Mossad? Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense, especially, Mossad, we do all this on behalf of them, but Mossad killed JFK, but JFK is the one that embroiled America in Vietnam. So, and Ravani Freiberg says there isn't much evidence made public about Epstein. Exactly. So, I mean, how does he know something about it? How can he say it's a Mossad operation? I have no information about it because the information has been covered up by the government. Epstein offed himself or was offed in prison, one of the two. Ghislaine Maxwell didn't speak. She's not spilling the beans. So, Piers Morgan has interviewed Cristiano Ronaldo, so yeah, he's very much well known, although he might not know much. Okay, so he interviewed an arrogant Portuguese rugby player, soccer player. What does that got to do with anything? Yeah, the Iraqis invaded Kuwait. I didn't forget. I was there.
Brother fought in that war for the British Army. He wasn't ordered
into
that war by Israel.
I wasn't taken there by Israel.
It was a decision taken by George Bush and
Tony Blair.
It just seems to me that when people have accused you, if they have, of being anti-Semitic, this is the reason why. It's because you look everywhere for a reason to blame Israel for absolutely everything.
Yep.
Even when there's no evidence.
There's no evidence of any of his claims, not one of them. I mean, not one of his claims actually has he offered any evidence of it. Israel is an apartheid state. He's offered no evidence. I've refuted that entirely. He's offered no evidence that Mossad killed JFK. No evidence that these American politicians are captured by Mossad. These are just claims. Yeah, no, it's just brain dead vacuum. I mean, and he actually believes this garbage. Firstly, I want to know why his citizenship hasn't been revoked. Why has the State Department not taken and the Justice Department taken steps to revoke his citizenship? He pledged allegiance and fealty to a foreign power and claims to have fought in a war for them. Should be the end of it. Case closed.
That it was Israel involved in the actual orders that were taken. There is no
Well, in fact, Charles, you're correct. We fought very hard diplomatically to urge restraint on the part of Israel. What is neglected in this whole conversation is that Iraq launched Scud missiles at Israel before we went into Iraq. They did that to draw Israel into the war. And the Israelis, through great restraint and the deployment of Patriot batteries to Israel, didn't do it. Now, the Patriot was overblown. I was there. Now, a Patriot may have saved my life, but it almost cost me my life. At Dahran Air Base, when they attacked, the Iraqis fired their missiles a couple days into the conflict. I'd gone back down to the air base, and I was staying in quarters that were actually the quarters of Major General Don Kaufman, who was later court-martialed by the Air Force, the first general officer court-martialed by the Air Force, but had nothing to do with my visit. So I was staying in his quarters and actually was able to make a satellite phone call that night and call family and tell them I was okay. First time I talked to family since I deployed there a couple months prior. And over a month prior. And then I slept in my sleeping bag instead of in the bunk because I was so used to sleeping in a hole in the ground. There was a bed there I could have slept in, and there was a satellite television, a huge satellite television. Anyway, I was awoken by air raid sirens in the middle of the night as Iraqi Scud missiles were raining down on Dahran, and a Patriot battery fired a missile and intercepted one, or at least got cleared near it and blew it up. And then in the morning, I went outside and walked and saw the remains of the Iraqi Scud missile about, I don't know, 150 meters, 100 yards, something like that from where I was sleeping at. That close to my life being over, courtesy of Iraq's use of weapons of mass destruction in times of conflict. Anyway, so we deployed. What I was getting at with the story is that the Patriots were not nearly as effective as the Bush administration claimed they were. And the Department of Defense says, oh, these are amazing. They stop all the missiles. No, they didn't. In most cases, they missed. They exploded near them, maybe diverted them, but they caused more debris falling down than was necessary. In fact, a lot of Israeli civilians died in those Scud missile attacks, but the Israeli government didn't share that information publicly because it would have undermined confidence and would have led to a public push for Israel to fight back against Saddam Hussein. People do forget that. They neglect the history because morons like Dan Bilzerian weren't there and are too lazy to do research and believe whatever shit someone tells them. It's very frustrating. A country is involved, isn't stolen valor a criminal offense? It is, Ruvani Fribus. It is, if he makes a false claim. He's a mouth spout, pure and simple. Does he think Diddy is Jewish too? Fiona says it's 100% an apartheid state. If you read the founders of Israel, like Moses, Hess, and Theodore Herzl, they wanted the Arabs and Jews separated by law. What people wanted a long time ago isn't the reality of today. So, there were anti-federalists who didn't want a constitutional republic in America, but we are a constitutional republic. So, quoting those people who didn't get their way really doesn't matter. So, right. So, here's the problem. And I thought so. I'm just double checking dates here. So Fiona says that the founders of Israel, like Moses, Hess, and Theodore Herzl. Theodore Herzl is not the founder of Israel. He died 44 years before Israel was founded. Died 44 years before Israel was founded. Not the founder of Israel. Get your facts straight. Yes, I can rebut your claims. I just did. You're talking shit. That's not even remotely true. The guy died. Died 44 years before Israel was founded. He was a Zionist, but he was not the founder of Israel. Unbelievable. Let's listen to some more of this genius.
No evidence that Israel ordered the Iraq War. It was taken by George Bush's administration with the help of people like Tony Blair.
Yep.
Well, we went there because Netanyahu testified in front of Congress that they had weapons of mass destruction, which was a total lie, and it was a
total lie. Well, the CIA told President Bush their weapons of mass destruction. The Defense Intelligence Agency told them their weapons of mass destruction. The British intelligence, the French intelligence, the German intelligence, the Russian intelligence, and the Australian intelligence all said that there are weapons of mass destruction there. So I'm sure that those countries probably exert a degree more of influence than little Israel does.
Lie to benefit Israel because that was an enemy of Israel. So what I'm saying is they're the beneficiary of what we are doing. And it's not in the best interest of the United States. So clearly they've got control over our politicians.
They've got control. Okay, let's not attack other people in the chat. Fiona can share Fiona's views, and Fiener's welcome to be here. But Fiener did state something's factually incorrect, and I stated the facts, and then I did rebut the claims. But there's no reason to attack people. Scott Ritter was an investigator sent in to find the WMDs. Scott Ritter is a fraud as well. Total fraud. The guy is just a total anti-American fraud.
Yeah, to be clear again, though,
I'm not saying our politicians are Jewish. I'm saying our politicians are doing what they're telling them to do.
Right. Well, that's slightly different to what you did say. And you said on Patrick Bet-David's podcast as well, they play the victim card so effing much about...
They play the victim card so effing much. Well, one could say the same thing about certain members of the black community, but that doesn't mean black people are victims, that they lack agency, just that they have leaders in their community that are full of crap. Same thing in South Africa. We have a majority-run country of South Africa in which people like Julius Malema and Cyril Ramaphosa run around and complain about how they're victims. They're not victims. They control the political situation. They've put in place oppressive laws to discriminate against minority South Africans and get away with it by screaming that because they're black, they're oppressed. They run South Africa. They run the country. They run everything. They run the laws, they run the parliament, they run the presidency, they run the judiciary, the police, the military. They've oppressed and pushed out minorities from every sphere of government, every sphere of the economy. And they've even intruded in the private sector, demanding that companies that have a certain size must hire people based on their skin pigmentation. Yet they play the victim day and day in and day out, day in and day out. They play the victim. So, lots of people play the victim. Israel plays the victim, fine. They play the victim. That's their prerogative. And Charles is correct. As I said before, Jews, Muslims, Druze, and Christians all share the exact same rights in Israel. They can all vote. They all own property. They all own cars. They all travel freely within Israel. They all have Israeli passports. They can serve in the IDF, in the police, in the judiciary, in the Knesset. They all do. They all do.
Jewish people. I mean, do you not understand why Jewish people might feel a sense of victimhood, given that 6 million of them were killed in World War II by a genocidal monster in the Holocaust? Do you not? So
Pablo says they are victims. You're wrong on that one. Did I say the Jews are not victims? Wait, don't put words in my mouth, brother. I never said that, Pablo Charlie. You're hearing what you want to hear. He said they play the victim. And I said, so what if they do? Or are you talking about black South Africans? Maybe, because your sentence is incomplete, so I don't know what you're talking about. Most expensive gated communities. Oh, black people. See, that's why I need to... They are victims. Black people are victims of what? The ANC? Oh, I would agree. Black South Africans are, in fact, victims of the ANC's negligence, its kleptocracy, and its disregard for the welfare of South Africans. 100%. 100%. Yep. If your argument is that black South Africans are victims of apartheid policies, well, yeah, that's true. But so are all South Africans. Yep.
Understand why that might make Jewish people feel that, yes, they have been victims.
This is where he refutes the Holocaust.
That figure's been revised, but...
That figure's been revised. By whom?
I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to America. And I think it's the greatest threat to the world today. I truly believe that.
Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to the world today. No, I think lawlessness is the greatest threat, and the decay of moral fiber. That is the greatest threat to the world today. The lack of liberty.
What do you mean the figure's been revised? What do you mean?
Well, they said that it was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million. So they've revised the figure.
Well, how many people? How many people do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
271,000 that died in Auschwitz.
So he's saying 371,000 actually died there. That's factually incorrect too. But it really doesn't matter. As I said, people were killed all over the place. I mean, the death camps were 1,200 of them, if I remember correctly. The map. Let's look a map for extermination camps, concentration camps. Map of Jewish concentration camps. So did Fiona leave? I hope you didn't leave, Fiona. And I told people not to attack you. That's unnecessary. It's gratuitous. Map of Jewish... No, that's not what I want. Map of German concentration camps. There we go. Holocaust Encyclopedia. Okay. Maps. Let me see if I can't find it. That's not what I want. That's Maps, the Google app. Okay, that's not a complete list. Here are the major ones. Okay, let me zoom in on this because it's way too small for you to see on the screen. Okay, now we can see a little bit. Here's just some of the major ones, okay? Bergen-Belsen, Neuengamme, Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen, Stutthof, Treblinka, Majdanek, Sobior, Auschwitz, Chelmno, Theresienstadt. It goes on and on and on. Malthausen, Dachau, Buchenwald. It just goes on and on. Those are the major ones, but there were over 12,000 of them. 1,200, excuse me, not 12,000. Yeah, those are concentration camps the Nazis ran. Let's see. Well, South Africa is their country too. If they want to ruin it, go ahead. Not to mention my cousin, who's 25 years older than me, was locked up for 3 months by the National Party, and she was white for simply protesting against restriction of movement. Yeah, exactly, Patrick. Yeah, no, the apartheid government, it banned people, it arrested people. Yep. Always much more convenient to label oneself a victim. Yep.
How many do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
I don't know. But
Okay, so how many people do you think were killed in the Holocaust? He just said that the figure 6 million is incorrect. It was revised downward to 4 million and then revised down to 1 million. And then he claimed there were 371,000 people claimed. But then when he's asked how many he thought, he said, well, I don't know. I have no evidence. Well, then why did you make the claim that only 371,000 people were killed there?
But I would bet my entire net worth that it was under 6 million.
He would bet his entire net worth was under 6 million. Well, you know, this guy's full of it. I'll take that bet.
Again, I simply ask you, Dan.
Oh, okay, Charles. No. I've talked about this endlessly and over again. I mean, in fact, you know, the ANC likes to take credit for the Freedom Charter from 1955 when they had virtually no role in the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter was a product overwhelmingly of South African Jews who wrote the Freedom Charter. The Pan-African Congress played a major role in it. The ANC played a tertiary role. They were not really involved in it, but they take credit for it. Yeah, I'll take that bet too, Charles. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, Charles says, I do, and fellow South Africans do not. No, they don't. I'm not Jewish, but I'm a historian and I tell the truth. And Jews played a major role. I mean, and just look at the ANC, the senior leaders for a long time. You see the likes of all the people who were involved in it. They were all a lot of Jews.
What's the motivation for making claims like that? What do you stand to gain by trying to diminish what happened in World War II?
I'm just answering your question. I mean, I'm a gambler, so if I think that something is a low probability, then I would bet on it.
Well, Pablo Charlie, most African Americans or Black Americans are not asking for reparations. Most Black Americans have no interest in that. It's just the race baiters and the race haters and the Black supremacists who are looking for that. It's a small number. All right, let me jump ahead a little bit more and see what else. This is part of the interview I didn't hear.
Everything that's happened that you don't like in the world. That is the purest personification of anti-Semitism right there. That's what it is.
Well, when you have a religion that promotes supremacy, when you have a religion that says that you are better than other people, and when you have
I'm sorry. I've known many Jews throughout my life, and I've lived in Israel, which is a largely Jewish state, but not exclusively. I've never met a Jew who told me they were better than me. I've never met a Jew who promoted Judaism over my faith. I have met Christians who said that their denomination is better than others. I have met Muslims who simply certainly think that Islam is the one true religion. I've never met a Jew that's ever said that. So I don't know what planet he's coming from or where he gets this Jewish supremacy. This is the sort of stuff that is what led to pogroms in Belarus, White Russia, in Ukraine, in Russia, in Poland for centuries. The number of Jews butchered and murdered in pogroms throughout those centuries in Eastern Europe is unfathomable, the number of people. Unbelievable.
A religion that says it's okay to steal from other people as long as they're not Jewish.
A religion that says it's okay to steal from other what in Judaism says it's okay to steal from people? Okay, I'll plead ignorance there. Please enlighten me there, Dan Bilzerian. Where did Jews say they can steal from other people? I don't recall that.
When you have a religion that says it's okay to rape people that aren't Jewish, when you have a religion that talks...
Judaism says you can rape people? Well, that's odd. The governor of Pennsylvania is a Jew. I don't hear him advocating for the rape of people who are non-Jews. Josh Shapiro is a Jew. I don't recall him ever saying anything like that.
It's about having sex with, kids that are under 3 years old.
I think that Dan is confusing Jews with Democrats. And I can understand a lot of Jews vote Democrat. So he's talking about having sex with minor children and, and saying you're better than other people. That is the definition of a Democrat and the leftist. That's who he's talking about. He's confusing Democrats with with Jews.
When you have a religion that promotes these things and promotes supremacy, I think you're going to have problems. And you see that in Israel.
Well, I think you would have problems too, except that Judaism doesn't do that. Yes, the Ten Commandments did come from the Jews. That's right. Yeah.
Israel is a manifestation of that religion. And I think that religion is, it's terrible.
You think that religion is terrible, the religion that gave us the Ten Commandments. Let's take a look at what those Ten Commandments say. Okay, Moses is the guy who went up purportedly onto Mount Sinai and got them. So, 10 Commandments. So, in order, here we go. So, you shall have no other gods before me. Well, that's terrible. Monotheism. Oh, so I guess we can't be Norse, or we can't be Greek or Roman. You shall not make idols. Okay, Islam says the same thing. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Well, I do that, unfortunately. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. So you should worship on one day of the week. Well, what a terrible thing. Honor your father and your mother. Ooh, wow. Have respect for your elders. You shall not murder. Wow, that's terrible. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. He just said Judaism promoted theft of people who weren't Jews, but it says you shan't steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and you shall not covet. Okay? These 10 commandments are listed in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. So, I mean, what exactly do the Jews do that this guy's talking about here? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not Jewish, but I hate the fact that so many parts of this is brushed under the carpet, blatantly lied about. Yep, I thought the 10 commandments, yep. My aunt worked for a Jewish man who was a very nice person. Poland, Ukraine had camps called extermination camps. Kate McKenzie stands for Israel. Okay. Never heard of Judaism ever condoning marriage to 9-year-olds and younger. Nah, but we do know a religion that does do that. And in fact, a prophet actually married a little girl. Yeah, we know that. Yep.
I don't believe in white supremacy. I don't believe in Jewish supremacy. I don't believe in supremacy at all.
No, we also don't believe in facts or history or reality. Dan Bilzerian.
And right now, I think you have massive Jewish supremacy.
I think you're a massive dingbat.
You sound like a Nazi.
I mean, why do you say that?
That's literally what Nazis would have said in World War II. They would have literally articulated their hatred of Jewish people and the reasons why in exactly the way you've just done.
Yeah.
I don't have a hatred for Jewish people.
Really? You just bore false witness against them. There's no Jewish supremacy. Many Jews are ethnic Jews, not even religious. Yeah, they're secular, just like many Christians are secular. Yep.
You do.
I don't like a religion that says that they're better than other people.
Then why are you dissing in Judaism? It doesn't say that.
What's that?
Well, you do. You obviously do. It's blatant. No one watching this will draw any other conclusion. I'm
100%.
staggered about how brazen you've been.
I'm gobsmacked.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't like it when people think they're better than other people.
Well, I don't like it when people are brain dead and don't understand what history. Ronnie Kasrils is a Jew and the intelligence minister for the ANC South Africa.
And you see that in Israel, and they're acting like that, and they're treating Palestinians like second-class citizens. They're treating them like
They're treating Palestinians like second-class citizens. Once again, that's a lie. Any Arab who lives in Israel, has an Israeli passport, is an Israeli citizen, ID card, and lives under Israeli law, which affords them the opportunity to live and work in peace, to worship, freedom of speech. They have jobs, they serve. We've covered this repeatedly. Even in Islam, the polygamy rule regarding wives was originally done to provide for widows during the early wars under Muhammad. It was perverted. Yes, that's correct, Charles. That's correct. And this guy does confuse the Torah with the Talmud. The Talmud is not the holy book. It is the writings of rabbis. That's correct. The Torah, the Quran, and the Bible are the 3 holy books. Yeah. The others just writing of rabbis.
Human beasts, and it sells that in their Talmud. So it says if you are not a Jew, that you are basically subhuman.
Well, the Talmud is not the Torah.
And I don't think that Judaism and Christianity go hand in hand. I mean, they believe that Jesus is in hell burning in human shit.
You don't believe that Judaism and Christianity go hand in hand. So we don't share Moses. We don't share the Ten Commandments. We don't share Jerusalem. We don't share collective history. Okay, all right. We don't share history of oppression under the Roman Empire, Christians and Jews being oppressed by the Romans. Yeah, we have nothing in common.
And they believe the Virgin Mary is a whore. So I don't think those are two religions that really
Judaism believes the Virgin Mary is a whore? Where do you get that from?
intersect very well. But, you know, we've been programmed that they do, and we've been programmed that it's okay and that...
Speaking of being programmed, Dan Bilzerian has clearly been programmed by somebody. Yeah, I know. He's like, you know, we have our roots in Judaism, but he says they're not compatible.
Jews are the chosen people, and I just
Yes, the Jews do believe they're the chosen people. That's a true statement. But they're the oldest religion of the major religions on the planet. The Judaism is, 5,000 years old, something like that. Yeah, they do believe they're the chosen people. That's true.
disagree with that. I think everybody's equal.
Well, some pigs are more equal than others, buddy. Read 1984.
Do you even comprehend how this interview is going to play out when it airs?
Oh, it played out very well for the anti-Semitic Islamic supremacist on Twitter. That's for sure. They loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be bad.
I'm sure it'll be
you know, my opinion is not politically correct, but I believe that is the truth.
It's also not well informed. My opinion is not politically correct. It's also poorly informed. Poorly informed. Poorly informed.
You're living in Qatar now.
Oh, in Qatar. He's living in Qatar.
Well, that's where I'm at right now. I'm not living here, but visiting.
Right. Is it the case that you feel safer to spew this kind of stuff from Qatar than you would spewing it in the United States?
Well, why wouldn't it be safe saying American? You can be dumb in America. There's no law against that.
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of Jewish people attack me since I started standing up in support of Palestine. When I started saying things that were against Israel, I found that I had my Jewish business manager tried to extort me.
Now we know what it's all about. His business manager tried to extort him. He's Jewish, so Jews are evil. That's what it's all about. Ah, my goodness.
Had lawyers do things that were illegal, and
so lawyers are all Jews? Not a true statement.
You know, I found a lot of, just hatred from the Jewish community because I was speaking out against the genocide.
The genocide. Well, most Jews in Israel and Israeli citizens know that there's no genocide, so why would they take offense?
And that really opened my eyes to what's going on.
Yeah, open your eyes, dude. You're so blind, it's unbelievable.
You know why Jewish people...
Like I said, rarely is it the case that people on the right side of history are the ones that are trying to silence people.
Yeah, that would be the Democrats.
Yeah, the reason Jewish people may dislike you is because of your obvious
anti-Semitism,
obvious hatred for them and everything they stand for. I mean, you've literally spent the last 20 minutes on an anti-Semitic rant that makes Kanye look like a choir boy. I'm just
True.
Staggered, but also bemused as to what you think you'll gain from this, other than you're just laying bare your anti-Semitism for everyone to see.
I don't think I'm going to gain anything. I think it'll be horrible for me. But, it's what
So
I
why
believe.
are you saying
I don't
it?
think that Jews like Christians, and you see it when they,
Jews don't like Christians. Wow. That just flies in the face of everything I've experienced in my 6 decades of life.
Killed them during the Holodomor, the Bolshevik genocide. I mean, the Bolsheviks, the leadership was 84% Jewish, and they were...
Oh my God. He's blaming Jews for the Soviets' Holodomor and the killing of Ukrainian peasants. He doesn't even know what the Holodomor is. He doesn't know the history of Ukraine, doesn't know the history of the Soviet Union. Now, as a historian who actually studied, researched, and wrote about the Soviet Union in the 1930s, I can tell you this guy is full of shit. Totally full of shit. Wow.
We're just mass killing Christians, and nobody talks about that.
Mass killing Christians. Yeah, Bolsheviks were not Jews. There were Jews in the Bolshevik leadership, that's true.
Let me just ask
That
you
was
one more
the
time.
first
Let me
Holocaust.
just ask you
Nobody
one more
wants-
time.
That was the first Holocaust. No. Dude, pogroms were the Holocaust that came long before the Holocaust of Jews being murdered in Belarus, White Russia, in Poland, in Ukraine, in Russia for centuries.
Talk
To
about
be
that.
honest,
History
but-
books don't cover that.
Right, let me just.
Skilled in Speech says you devoted way too much time to this. Look, Skilled in Speech, I'm up, and I'm sorry if you feel I'm devoting too much time to it. But I mean, if you don't, this guy has millions of followers, and some of them have popped in here and just spewed the same nonsense. And if people don't state the facts, then the false narrative becomes the truth. I mean, honestly, nothing this guy says makes any sense. Is there something on my shirt, or is that just a, what's that? Oh, no, that's a print on there. It looked like there's something like a stain there. Anyway, yeah. So Skilled in Speech, I'll be done with this in just a couple more minutes. You just got a couple more, but I didn't intend to go this long with it. But we had a healthy chat over here, and we talked about this. And so, anyway, hang on.
Let's ask you one more time, just for clarity. I think you should be honest. But do you hate Jewish people?
No, I don't.
Then why do you spew such hatred about them?
Well, I don't like what they've done. I don't like what their religion preaches. I don't like what's going on in Israel. I don't like their influence over our government. So,
Wow.
What do you like about Jewish people?
I would say on average they're more intelligent.
Ooh. Are black people better athletes too, Dan? God bless.
That's it?
I don't have too many. Look, there's 2 billion Muslims, but everybody wants to,
There are not 2 billion Muslims. No, there are not 2 billion Muslims.
promote this anti-Muslim, this hatred for Muslim. Like,
who's promoting anti-Muslim hatred? In fact, I made a great distinction between Islamic fanatics and Muslims throughout this broadcast. But see, clowns like this will tell fairy tales. Why is he so in love with Muslims? It was Muslims that murdered the Armenians, but he blamed the Jews for it. That's the most comical part of this.
they're all, these terrorists. And I think the Israelis are the terrorists. I think they are the ones perpetuating the big acts of terrorism. And, nobody wants to talk about that.
Because it's not true.
And what do you say to Jewish people who may watch this and be utterly horrified by what they're hearing?
They could be horrified. I was horrified to find that they mass murdered Christians. I was horrified to learn the things that they teach in the Talmud.
The Talmud is not the Torah, and Jews have not mass murdered Christians. Where did this occur? The Holodomor? That was the Soviets.
I was horrified that they think that Jesus is burning in shit in hell. I was horrified that they think that the Virgin Mary is a whore. I was horrified to learn that they think it's okay to steal from Gentiles. I was horrified to hear that there's, two sets of justice. I was horrified to find out that they think it's okay to, gang rape Palestinian prisoners. I was horrified about all those things. I'm horrified that we're funding a genocide right now.
I'm horrified that this guy's an American citizen when he betrayed America and pledged fealty to a foreign power and then fought in a conflict for that power. That's what I'm horrified by. And he claims to be a veteran, claims to be a Navy SEAL, claims all kinds of bullshit, which is demonstrably unprovable. That's what I'm horrified by. I'm horrified by his stupidity, his ignorance, and his hysteria. I'm horrified by the level of absolute bat crap crazy nonsense being spewed by people who have no idea what they're talking about. He doesn't always talk about in the Gulf War. He doesn't always talk about the history of the United States. Doesn't always talk about when it comes to Judaism, Christianity. Doesn't know anything. Doesn't know anything here. Total nonsense. I'm horrified that Piers Morgan brought this idiot on his program. It just shows you Piers Morgan is an attention whore and did it. So Skilled in Speech said, I devoted too much time, but someone must refute this nonsense. I refused. How the hell he's a multimillionaire? Well, because his father's rich and gave him lots of money. The guy was a drug addict. Let me talk about some of the problems with this clown. Okay, let's talk about him now. Where the heck is this at? I got it here somewhere here. Here we go. Let's talk a little bit about this guy, okay? All right, so here we go. So Daniel Brandon Bilzerian, born December 1980, is an American poker player, businessman, and social media influencer. He gained notability for his extravagant lifestyle and photo ops with scantily dressed female models. He's the son of Paul Bilzerian. So he's half Armenian, descent through his father. His father was a corporate raider on Wall Street who provided both his sons with trust funds. He said he studied for 4 years at University of Florida, majoring in business and criminology, but dropped out to pursue a professional poker career. Okay. He played in the 2008 series. He runs the company Ignite International Brands, which sells electronic cigarettes, CBD, water bottles, and vodka. It's a public company headquartered in Toronto. It began trading in 2019 under a ticker. They lost over $50 million in 2019, mostly on marketing and office rental expenses. Due to his drug abuse, he reportedly suffered 2 heart attacks before the age of 32. In 2014, he split his time between homes in Hollywood Hills and Los Angeles and Las Vegas. He moved to the Los Angeles neighborhood of Bel Air in 2018. In 2018, Bilzerian flew to Armenia with his brother Adam and his father Paul to take their oaths to obtain Armenian citizenship and join the Armenian Armed Forces. On that same trip, he visited the Republic of Artsakh, where he visited a shooting range and fired weapons. The government of Azerbaijan sent a note of protest to the United States over these actions due to the contested status of Artsakh and summoned U.S. Charge d'Affaires William Gill to take an official note of protest addressed to the State Department. A court in Baku issued an arrest warrant for Bilzerian and put him on international wanted list. 2 years later, Bilzerian and other members of his family donated $250,000 to the Armenia Fund to support Armenia and Artsakh against Azerbaijan during the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. He also declared that he was very disappointed that Azerbaijan decided to attack the Armenian people. He announced his bid to run for President of the United States in 2015. He was criticized after a series of posts on Twitter where he offered an interpretation of the Talmud deemed by a commentator to be incorrect and anti-Semitic. He said the Jews had advanced knowledge of 9/11, they killed JFK, and they run the American entertainment industry. In an interview with Piers Morgan, he claimed that Judaism promotes supremacy, rape, and steals from other people as long as they're not Jewish. Yeah. Anyway, in 2014, he sued the producers of the film Lone Survivor. His lawsuit said that he invested $1 million in the film in exchange for 8 minutes of screen time and 80 words of dialogue, but his role was reduced to less than 1 minute. That's a minute too much, and 1 line. He demanded $1.2 million, his original investment, plus 20%. Okay. He was banned from Miami nightclub for kicking model Vanessa Castano in the face during a brawl. Castano said there were 2 girls standing next to me at the table that were fighting. People started getting shoved, and I tried to separate them. Dan pushed me off the banquet, and once I fell, he kicked me in the face. She later filed a lawsuit against him for her injuries. He was involved in a legal matter with pornographic actress Janice Griffith. Griffith was featured in a photo shoot with him for Hustler magazine April 2014. Griffith fell short of a pool because he threw her off a roof into a pool. She hit the edge and broke her foot. The 18-year-old asked him for $85,000 for injuries, which was rejected. He was arrested at the Los Angeles International Airport on unrelated bomb-making charges in 2014. He was arrested on a fugitive warrant from Nevada and was booked in LAPD around 10 p.m., charged with violating a law making a crime possess an explosive or incendiary device with intent to manufacture it. In 2015, he pled no contest to the misdemeanor charge of negligently failing to extinguish a fire in the open and was fined $17,000. Wow. Wow, this guy is a wackadoodle. Living proof that you don't need an IQ to be rich, which is not a compliment. Yep. He was the first commentator on Twitter or some such huge professor. I don't know about that. Why didn't we devote this time to what happened in Amsterdam? What happened in Amsterdam, Pablo Charlie? What happened in Amsterdam? Met some of those survivors on camps, foreshadowed. Okay. Oh, it has a South African division. Okay. Okay, he might be insane. He might be insane. He became multimillionaire because he has a trust fund from his father, and so he's living off the money that the corporate raider got destroying American companies. Yep. All right, folks, that's going to do it here. I've been on for 2 hours, and thank you all for tuning in. I only did this because it's been a long day for me. I got up, I did a morning broadcast, then went to the clinic, had a chest x-ray, couple of those, and then an EKG, and then came back, did the Ronaldo program, then did my Night Owls, then did my radio show, then did this because someone on Ronaldo said, what are your thoughts on this guy, Dan Bilzerian? I'd never heard of him before, and so I did it. Myra. Hey, Myra. Good to see you there. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up here, folks. Thanks for being here. Again, when people come on and you disagree with them, folks, please don't gang up on them. And don't say, unless they attack you, there's no need to do that. So Fiona was here. I don't know if Fiona left, but people were being mean to Fiona. And then the AB person was just all kinds of crazy stuff. But people were, there's no need for that. Leave that to the leftists. Let them be disrespectful and rude to other people. So someone should scam him. He's dumb enough to fall for it. I agree. Charles says, Chris, that was very entertaining and enlightening. I thought so too. That's why, when I was asked why I devoted time to it, was because I thought it was entertaining. Pablo says, I'll attack anytime it's in my veins. All right. Okay, Pablo. Well, thank you for just ignoring my request. All right, you guys take care. We'll see you later on. Don't forget, I have in the morning, David Ansara from the Free Market Foundation in South Africa. We'll be talking about tariffs, trade, AGOA, and Trump. Yeah, that'll be a short one. Won't be long, probably 30, 40 minutes. No, you weren't rude, Charles. No, you didn't come across as anything. But the people who were rude know who I'm talking about. I'm not attacking them. I'm just saying there were a few people who were a little bit rude. All right, that's going to do it, folks. I'm tired. It's midnight. And get some sleep. I'll be up. I need to draft a letter of introduction for myself tomorrow morning. I've already started working on it. And don't forget, we've got lots of rugby this weekend. Starting Friday, Ireland hosting Argentina. Saturday, we've got Scotland hosting Portugal, England hosting South Africa, France hosting New Zealand. Going to be a big weekend. No, Charles, you got to put it on the live chat, and then you'll see it. So there was a lot of people saying things there. Anyway, all right, that's it. I'm out of here. Cheers. Have a good night, and God bless. And have a good day for South Africans. It's already 9 o'clock there. Cheers.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that since I'm down in Boulders. Folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa.